I find myself thinking about our sweet escape. I love to daydream about those memories
All right, guys.
of
Hello.
ocean.
Welcome to yet an all new episode of Dan's Stream of Thought. Hi, friends. I don't. I like. It's wrong for like on my end. It's wrong for me to call you students to teacher or whatever it might be. I know you guys. You guys like that meme. You're perfectly acceptable. You guys do it. Great. As a non, I have to bring that out there because of disclaimer. If one of our mods wants to put exclamation point disclaimer in chat, uh, I am only I'm only here on the basis of I've been doing this a long time. And a lot of what we're actually going to be talking about today is based on simply the fact that I and people I've been talking to and people that constantly um, provide feedback and people that I talk to on a daily basis professionally have been doing this for a long time. However, a lot of people we do talk to on a regular basis happens to be a lot of experts, attorneys, managers, agents, people who draft contracts, all kinds of stuff. People who do all these things. There's a lot of people that I have the pleasure of knowing and getting to professionally speak with through casual conversation, through whatever it might be. So, because I mean, believe it or not, I mean, you guys probably do believe it. And most of your streamers, so you probably understand this. Streamers talk about streaming most of the time when they're around each other. Sometimes we don't. A lot of the times, if we like really know certain people, we start to talk about video games, which is kind of like work anyway, or just all kinds of things in general. But that's gonna lead us into what we're talking about today. But before I get into today, how is everybody? I hope you're well. I know it's hot. I might be speaking a little bit slow today because of how hot it is. It is hot. It may not help that I'm still wearing my socks, shoes, and joggers. Wait. I got a stand up desk now, so I can actually. I have to stretch for this one. Ugh, ugh. It's up there. It's friggin' hot. It's friggin' hot. We live in LA now, so it is not only hot, but it is dry. Which you would think it'd be better than being humid. Like I like the humidity, not because I like being sticky or anything, but I like the humidity because I think it makes sense to sort of I don't know, it feels if everything feels more natural when it's humid. I feel like I'm just in an environment that I don't belong in when it's super dry, and I feel like my skin hates me, and I feel like just all kinds of things that just makes me want to itch. But for the most part, it's supposed to feel cooler, right? A cat's in a box right now, and Jet's trying to attack her, or they're playing hide and seek or something. Um, but anyway, we're not gonna sit here and talk about the weather. We're gonna talk about some things that I want to talk to you all about. Not being a lawyer and not being a manager, not being an agent, not being a professional on that side of things so much, but I am still a professional on a side that says, "Hey, I have to read these things. I read um, agreements and terms of use and terms of service and uh, I don't really not all the time, but I should be reading end user license agreements and EULAs and all kinds of stuff like because that is part of the work, right? There's all these things pop up when you go to play a game and stuff like that. So quite often there's a good reason you should be reading these things, but a lot of people don't. Thankfully, and correct me if I'm wrong, attorneys in chat. Thankfully, a lot of people who are in charge of punishing or disciplining people know that those things are kind of skipped over 99% of the time and people just want to get to playing the game or whatever it might be, and usually maybe here in California specifically they tend to side with the people that are meant to just be enjoying something. I don't know. But they're too long. Exactly. They're too long. So it's like, do you really expect people to go through every single one? Probably not, but they put them in there for safety. I don't know how often companies tend to use those against people, or at least use those as tools to fight against other things. I don't really know how much that happens. I'm sure it has happened before. But the biggest thing here is not just talking about video games. We're actually going to move away from video games in general because, well, like we just said, a lot of those things are they're just too long. There's things that don't really get talked about too much. They also don't get used too much. So it's not really that big of a deal as far as big scope of things. They are a big deal when it comes to little things and a lot of things that happen. Little things, but I mean like minute fine details, not like little things as in they don't really matter. Because often if somebody wants to go after you for something like that, they probably matter. Whether or not you're in the right or not, you still got to put up with fees. You still got to put up with all kinds of garbage that you don't want to deal with. Even if it's all pro bono or free, it's still a big headache. Nobody wants to deal with that. I push you back to like when H3H3 went through their legal battles and stuff like that. They were, they knew they were in the right. They had a good feeling they were in the right. They were going through a lot of things. Their lawyers told them they were in the right, but they still had to go through so much work in order to protect themselves and defend themselves. They ended up winning that case for good reason, but like it was a big fiasco and headache for a lot of those things. I don't want, well, here's the thing. People that are going to get dinged on stuff like this and people that feel like they're being attacked for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act to this DMCA and stuff like that often don't even have the choice to fight it because, well, they don't know what to do. They don't know who to talk to, but most of the time, they don't have the resources to deal with it. And that's going to be what it's going to be like for a lot of people and a lot of things in this case. So, right here on a brand new, all new episode of Dan's Stream of Thought. Hello, I'm Dan, otherwise known as Dan Otage. You can find me right here on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff at Dan Otage. We're going to be talking about agreements and contracts that you sign or don't sign or just agree to, and things that you see pretty much on a daily basis. Specifically, we're going to be talking about things that streamers use or influencers use or people that have a brand of some sort use, like merchandise, like selling products with your logos, your images, your likeness, whatever it might be on it. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything you've had before. So maybe your only protection is really for that shirt or that line of products or whatever it might be. But that is still important to you guys. At least I think it's important to me. So I would assume it's important to you to protect those and to make sure that what you're using, what other people are using to sell and give you a cut of it, that it's fair, right? Now, um, there's a lot of things that are in these agreements. A lot of it is sometimes understandable. A lot of it is often legalese. A lot of it is just straight up things that are so convoluted that even if it's not legalese, you just can't understand what the heck they're trying to say. Because remember, humans do write these things. Um, Sometimes they're extremely intelligent and evil, and they want to make some stuff up that confuse you on purpose. Sometimes they're very intelligent, and sometimes they don't understand what the people reading them how they understand them. Sometimes they don't know what the heck they're doing, and they just put gobbledygook on there. But like understand that there's a reason that these people write these things, and often they're for good reason. But sometimes there are things in there that very much go to not only protect the company that they're writing it for, but also to go to take advantage of whoever uses it. We're going to be talking about specifically Stream Elements, who has recently come out with a store product on their website where you can upload your images and be able to sell merch from there and stuff like that. We're also going to be talking in comparison to Designed by Humans, DBH. I think I understand both of them. I'm going to talk about the things that I do understand. We're going to talk through the things that I kind of understand. And I will leave the stuff that I do not understand up to research and questions around it and stuff like that. And hopefully we can come to an agreement on what you may or may not want to do with that. Again, disclaimer again, not a lawyer. Absolutely not a lawyer. Do not listen to me. In fact, if you're watching a stream with lawyers on it, probably don't listen to them either because they're not giving advice. Streamers or lawyers will tell you, streamers will tell you even that whatever I say is information that you can use or not use up to your discretion, and understand that this is information based on either anecdote or it's from stuff that says, hey, I don't know you very well. Here's general information that you may or may not be able to use. So keep that in mind when listening to what we're talking about. I'm not going to talk your ear off too much today. I try not to do that every episode. I tend to go way farther than we do on each episode, but we're gonna try to reel it in. I don't have any wood to knock on. I think this is real wood. I got a new desk today. I'm standing, by the way, today. If you guys haven't noticed, I got a new desk like a few days ago, and it's freaking great. But since I have a terrible back and my feet are flat, it hurts to stand for like too long. So maybe that'll keep me going. Um, nowhere did it warn me. I didn't know you'd be in here. I actually mentioned to to Morag, our producer, I was like, "Hey, Latte's in here. We may be talking about stuff you might actually know." Um, but I think I don't know, and I don't know when exactly the moment that you left Stream Elements, Latte, but I think it was before a lot of the store and merch stuff came out. We're not going to be talking about Stream Elements as a whole. I actually really enjoy a lot of the stuff that Stream Elements offers. I personally don't use Streamlabs. I use Stream Elements because the team over at Stream Elements has been super good to me. In fact, Latte was the beginning of my relationship with Stream Elements. However, I do have some specific problems that I'm going to try to talk about today, especially with their ownership and license segment in their agreement when it comes to the terms and conditions when using them as a store. I think I normally wouldn't point stuff out like this, but I think this section specifically is important. And for reference, I compared it with the um, what do they call this one? Terms of use, which I think is different. So I need to find I probably need to find a different thing, but I couldn't. And because I think their login piece is down, I couldn't figure out how to find exactly the right document for DBH. If somebody has that on hand, I'd be super grateful to have that. But right now, I found the terms of use, which is um, slightly different. Slightly different. My first draft. What are we talking about? Was setting up the merch, specifically a premium merch, not the automated thing they use now. Gotcha. Okay. So this is the legal part that I'm talking about. So we're going to talk about this specifically. So most of the agreement from what I've seen is normal boilerplate. Like I haven't really seen too many things that scare me too much. We've been looking through between Katie and myself, we've been looking through a lot of contracts lately. There's a lot of things that are not awesome. Like we've seen like one contract that was pretty good. We've seen a lot of contracts that were not awesome. But very seldom do we see contracts that were like, yeah, absolutely not. However, have seen some of those lately. Um, so I've been looking through this and trying to understand what's going on. They define a lot of things for you at the top. They talk about the store. Obviously, hey, if you use our store, this is what you got to do. This is what you're going to work with. But I'm going to scroll down to section 9 here. We're going to talk about ownership and license. So, first of all, before we get into this, the whole reason we're talking about this is because these are the things that most people, and Rini said it best right before the show. These are the things that most people skip over, but I'm going to try to show you why you shouldn't skip over it all the time. And you shouldn't skip over it when it happens to be part of your brand and your licenses. Because your licenses and your likeness and somebody licensing your likeness is you. It's everything about you. Um, it basically says that, hey, we don't own you as a person because that's wrong, and the government says we're not allowed to do that. But it kind of means that we own everything that, or whatever it says in the contract. But often they try to say, hey, we own everything that you do. And it's like, well, what's the difference in a lot of ways? Obviously, no physical pain, but that's that's one thing. And then because that's wrong, and people I think know that, who knows if a lot of companies would want that. Maybe, I don't know. But it more is about a lot of things that can stress you out. So please don't skip over a lot of these things, especially if you only have to read them once, and especially if you only have to deal with them once. And if you like what they have, then you deal with them in that company for the rest of your career, maybe. Um, I was curious because I have a store on DBH. I've had a store for a long time on DBH, designed by humans, and honestly, back then when I started this, I wasn't as savvy as I am now, so I probably missed over a lot of stuff, which is probably why I'm partially unfamiliar with exactly what's going on during or with the DBH and their agreements. But I did look at the Stream Elements one because I was curious. I was like, hey, is this something that I might want to switch to? I know people have been talking to me for about it for a while. A lot of the Stream Elements team has been asking me about it. And I'm like, I'm happy with DBH. I don't necessarily want to move over just yet. I don't have, and I just haven't had time to really look over it. I had been in the reading mood of agreements and contracts and stuff like that, so I figured, hey, let's see what's on here, and that's actually like see if what uploading is going to do. And then we ran across this section that you see guys in front of you, ownership and content licenses. So I'm going to read it to you out loud. You guys can read it for yourself. It's perfectly public. Let's see, yeah, just go to their website and see where that thing is. Um, as between merchant and SE, which is merchant would be you, you're the one selling your product on the store, and SE, which is Stream Elements. Merchant is sole and exclusive owner of merchant content. Great. That's something that says that we're not going to take your items and say that they're ours, or your art and say that they're yours. You might not even own that art, by the way, because your artist owns that art until you have it signed over to you. So you should work on something like that, if especially if you are going to start selling product with that art on it. So work on that. Different note, but work on that. Notwithstanding such ownership. Now let's go to this. Section A. Merchant hereby grants Stream Elements and all of Stream Elements affiliates a worldwide assignable non-ex. Okay, so go by slowly. Sorry, I went too fast. A worldwide assignable, non-exclusive, royalty-free, fully paid up, licensable, sub-licensable through multiple tiers of sub-licensees, irrevocable and perpetual license in any media format and through any media channels not known or hereafter developed. Okay, that's a lot right there. There's a lot of words that I don't necessarily fully understand, but worldwide means the entire world, right? So we know that. Often, as we deal with internet things, that's pretty normal. There's a lot of things that are worldwide, especially when you're dealing with a company like Stream Elements that isn't American, and most users on Twitch are American. But even if they're not American, a lot of users don't necessarily live in the country in which the Stream Elements is run out of, whatever it might be. Assignable, meaning is now correct me if I'm wrong, means they are able to assign that as they want as well. They're able to assign this license to who they want. Um, and since I don't see anything else in here that says with your permission, they can do it however they want. Non-exclusive, which means that again, while you're signing your license, the license of this content over to them, it also means that because that word is there, again, they can give it to other people without asking you because it's not exclusive to them. You'd want it to be mostly exclusive so that you understand that, hey, if something went out and I didn't agree to it, you can say that you can go to the source of it and say that, hey, no matter if it's you or not, we signed an exclusive deal that says we have something going on. So if I find this somewhere else, either someone stole it from you or you did something against the contract or the agreement. Royalty free means they don't have to pay you for it. Fully paid up, which means that they have already paid you for it, right? They've already paid it for you. Yeah. For outside of the agreement. We're talking about I guess we're talking about license, right? So I'm assuming I think there is an agreement later that actually not later, but there's an agreement that says that you are paid per this through a different part of this. Ah, right. That's okay. So fully paid up, which means that whatever you agreed on is already paid up, which as you're signing up for this is probably nothing. Sublicensable mean reasoning. So fully paid up is a term of art. Reasoning being if there's a back end royalty, they will not be fully paid up until the end of the life cycle of the product. Um, right, right, which is problematic. Mainly because you don't know what's happening behind either closed doors or behind whatever it might be. don't know what's happening. Sub-licensable, again, that continues to go on to not the same area as non-exclusive and assignable, meaning they can then license after you have licensed them, right? So, um, I liken this to like things where if a publisher owns a game, because now I don't know, we're not going to talk about video games again, and I don't understand exactly where this comes from, but what I've read and what I've seen is that a publisher tends to own the sales of a game, the game discs, the whatever it comes out when somebody releases a game, the game keys, the game codes, the content that is created with it, whatever it might be. The IP is usually owned by the developers, and the code itself is owned by the developers, but also that it depends on the company. Um, so when we talk about things to where it is sub-licensed, if the if the developing team licenses something to a publishing team and they agree that it's sub-licensable, the publishing team can go over and say, "Hey, would you like to license this stuff that we have here?" It's like, "Well, I thought the A, B, and C was developing that." It's like, "Yeah, but we have the right to sub-license it, so we're gonna license it to you." And then it comes down to, well, the developing team just agreed to sub-license it, so or that the publishing team could sub-license it, so they don't really have a say in much of that unless there's, again, additional wordage that says that. Um, Most of what you're looking for is if you really agree for all this to be in here, adding something in there that says, "Hey," or just asking the people that you're talking to, "Hey, can this all be done under my consent? Like, if you ask me first, or if I in writing agree to it, or whatever it might be." That's not advice. I'm not telling you to do that if you need to do that. I'm just saying that that is something that you need to talk about with a professional, to ask questions like this so that you understand, "Hey, can I have like a say in this at all?" Because a lot of what's worded here kind of says you don't have a say. Um, well, yes, and I understand that, and we're getting to that part. So what Katie just said was a lot of these verbiage, a lot of this language in here can be seen as perfectly legitimate, because in order for somebody to produce product, to say like, "Hey, we need this shirt done, but we're not going to do it ourselves," they need to sub-license your art, your artist's art, your ideas, whatever it might be, to the people who are going to physically print that stuff. So it can be very much seen as legitimate, but the way this is put together says that it's not just for necessity. It is for much more than necessity. It says, "Hey, we need all this, but also," it's like say it's the comparison is like saying, "Hey, I need you to sign this document so that I can get you your car back." Like when you go to any towing place or whatever it might be. "Hey, I'm gonna get you your car back. I just need you to sign this." But in the thing that you have to sign also says that you agree to pay way more than it's worth to house the car there for 6 hours or 3 hours or whatever it might be when they take your car in the middle of the night because your sticker fell off that says you live there and you actually rent that parking space. Yes, that has happened to me several times. Yes, I've had to walk all the way down to the towing company's office and pay them $600 to get my car out so that I can go to work, and then explain to my boss that says, "Hey, they towed my car." "Oh, were you not parking at home?" "No, I was parking at home." Uh, okay. And well, I mean, you showed up late, so we under our agreement that we have with you, I've already given your route away. Yes, this is a true story that's happened. I've already given your route away, so you got to go home. It's like, well, you can't just have me pick up the route, and because you're obviously making these other guys busy, like, "Nope, we already agreed on that, so that's just what's gonna happen." And it's like, "Yeah, technically we did agree on it, so yes, another agreement that I just kind of didn't think about." And so I went home, out $600, out a day of work, and doubly screwed. So when you're looking at something like this, you do need extra language in there sometimes that says that gives you a safety net, that gives you something. Now, I'm not expecting you to say, "I want these exact words in there," but what I am expecting you to say is, "Hey, Can we talk about these things and can we hopefully help each other out so that we both feel comfortable? I personally have had many discussions with people talking about contracts. I have not yet. Now, I haven't been dealing with a lot of this for too long, like decades and decades. I've been in this industry for a decade, but I haven't been dealing with this kind of stuff for decades and decades. But with that being said, I have never had anybody say, "No, we are not going to negotiate with something. No, we are not going to fix this for you. No, we are not going to help you feel more comfortable with this." I've never had that before. Never in my entire life have I had that before. So, I urge you that if you see something that's problematic, please ask somebody about it and see if you can get something changed so that both of you are happy. More than likely, something will happen, especially if you're some person that puts together a professional email or chat or whatever it might be. Because if they see professionalism in somebody, they see business sense and they see, hey, this person can actually make us money by working with each other. So let's actually get something working. I have, in my experience, have never seen anything different than that. So I hope that you get the same. Just please ask questions. Um, I have and I yeeted them. Nice. Kid Kerrigan, by the way, great streamer, great person of definite interest when it comes to talking about professional things like that. Kid Kerrigan, we got to get you on the show very soon. But yeah, it's tough when somebody says something like that. I've never had it happen to me. I also, like I said, haven't done a lot of things like this, so there's a lot of things that happen. So I'm gonna go back and chat for a little bit and talk about what's been happening. I know people in the U.S. always think from their perspective, but aliens sometimes land outside the U.S. Two movie meme. Yes, precisely. Um, do not like this as an artist. As an artist with this stuff, yeah, being able to say to have like, I mean, that's the thing too. Um, that's the thing too. If you're an artist that makes art for people who are gonna use it for merch, like, you may have a relationship with them, right? You may not want to get paperwork involved. You may not want to get something signed. I urge you to still get something signed so that you don't have to deal with something. And if you're an artist, I highly recommend that if you don't want your art changed, that be in your agreement. You want something for you both to be happy, right? Like, the artist doesn't lose out on really anything when it comes to signing, an agreement that says that now the person who's purchasing your art actually owns it. Like, that's not something that says it that way. There's also ways of saying that you can have it licensed to you, or you can license your art out to people. So if you make something for somebody, somebody can buy the license for it from you, and then you get to detail the terms of that license and be able to say, "Hey, you can use this. Please don't change it." Like, all I ask is you don't change it. I would love to be able to have this in my portfolio and show people wearing it based on who you sell it to and what happens. I would love to show that. But if you change it, I can no longer show that because it's not my work anymore. Now, you can have it that way, you can have whatever you want, but that sometimes that agreement has to happen, even if they are your friends. But the point in saying that is if you deal with a friend of yours and they're like, "Great, I'm not gonna change a single thing, it's gonna be great." And then they sign something like this, or they agree to something like this, and they say, "Hey, so by the way, this company, that I've been selling my merch through, they sold the license or they sub-licensed out to, a different company who's also selling it. Whether you agree to say, 'Hey, we can split the profit,' or 'Hey, this is going on,' or maybe you're just not okay with the company that they sub-licensed it to, you don't really have that say anymore. And as soon as the um, person who wanted to run the merch store uploaded that image, it no longer became in your control anymore. Now, somebody's not going to more than likely not going to bring up something that says, "Hey, so they changed it and they put phallic objects all over it." That's probably not going to happen because there are things that prevent that from happening. So well, I don't know strictly how far they go, but there's things that happen like that. So as the artist, you're not gonna lose something. You're not gonna lose things, right? Even if you don't sign anything, it's not like you're gaining anything anyway, right? It's mostly so that it's to protect the people buying your commissions and what it has to be so that you or somebody in your position doesn't go, Hey, so I know that we had this purchase agreement and like, or we no, I invoiced you and you paid me or whatever for doing art for you, but it, I don't really want to give that to you anymore. So I need you to give it back, and I'm not refunding you. And it's like there's nothing that really says that they really have to do that. Now there's like PayPal rules and stuff like that too, but for the most part, like when it comes to art, it's complicated. I don't know exactly how far it goes, but I know that it's complicated. Art is something that I think a lot of people, especially higher up, like judges and stuff, just don't understand fully yet, especially when it comes to digital media. There's a lot of ruling over like physical art and tattoos and stuff, but even that is super messy. I just it's a sticky mess. Like so much so that like actually doing the work to get an agreement together is so much cleaner. It's so much more understandable like, yeah, you wanna not get into paperwork with your friend and stuff like that, but I guarantee that getting into that paperwork with your friend is probably gonna keep you both way happier. You don't have to make it complicated. You don't have to, like, pay a lawyer an extended amount of fees. You don't have to do a lot of that. You can do it for very simple. Um, I think it'd be really cool if we can get some people hi, Kitty. If we get some people to draft up, like, a general agreement that people can, like, borrow or I don't know, some let's say, like, "Hey, pay me 20 bucks and you can have this thing." I don't know how it works, but something like that. But please, yes, you don't want the worst thing is to the worst thing is to be betrayed by a friend. Trust me, I know. When you go into business with people and they just say, "Ah, screw you, dude. I don't like you anymore, and it's just I don't wanna deal with this anymore." And you guys fall out, and it's like, "You don't get to use my art anymore. You don't get to do this anymore." It happens. People are humans, and friendships die, and things like that happen. As long as you have that paperwork that says that, "Hey, everything I purchased from you, everything I paid you for, I get to have and I get to keep. It's mine." You want that. It's safe for everybody. It's just the thing that you wanna do, and it doesn't matter if they're your friends, you wanna be able to do that, it's just better. It sucks. It really sucks that I have to say stuff like that, but sometimes it's just better. Or every time it's just better, I should say. Okay, so back to one of the big pieces that Mona talked about. So let's assume under normal contract interpretation, the existence of a right demands on a receipt of payment. However, party A is paying party B via royalty, right? Not an upfront payment. Absent the fully paid up language. It's going back to the beginning language. We haven't even got to section sub A by the way. Um, uh, Fully paid up language. Party A would not wow, chat moved and I got disoriented. Ooh. Oh, my scroll changed, that's why. Um, Not an upfront payment, under the implied meaning, have the right to use the IP it needs to exploit to pay party B until it is fully paid by party B. I give part clear so this latte, I give part clarity to that at first, as he was, working with Guten. Who's Guten? And later with Printful. Oh, these are the printing companies. Um, with something like this, as they could both use both companies for right, right. Again, this is back to, the part where this type of language is necessary for things like that. We haven't gotten to the biggest part yet, and that's part of where there's no, like I don't I hesitate to use the word good faith, but there's no, like, anything that says, "Hey, we're doing all this, but here's the reason why," or, "But don't worry, we also have your rights for this," whatever it might be. There's nothing that says anything like that. There's nothing to give the person agreeing to this comfort. Now, necessity and this is the problem with a lot of these agreements, and as a non-lawyer, I think I can say this because 'cause I'm not speaking with my peers, but there's a lot of lawyers out there that don't care about making people feel comfortable, that don't care about saying, "Hey, uh, we don't care. We're gonna put the things that we need in here, and, well, you didn't put anything in there, so I guess and you agreed to it, so I guess it's okay." In my opinion, a good lawyer is going to want both parties to be happy. Obviously, If you're working for a company, you want them to make as much money as possible, but you also don't want to help ruin relationships with the people that you're working with. Because what does that do? That hurts your brand. And if you hurt a brand, well, it happens to be the lawyer's fault in this case as to why that brand is damaged. And this is a problem I've been having personally and professionally for a few months now, ever since I started managing myself and doing all this stuff. This has been really tough because you're like, hey, you're making you look bad right now because you're sending me stuff that your lawyers told you to send me. And I'm sitting here going, I think you're awesome. I think you're amazing, but your lawyers are making you look bad and you need to understand this. This has happened on several occasions. Now, it's happened before this too. So I've seen this in a couple different things. This has just happened a lot over the last 10, 12 years. You are awesome. Love your face. You do everything very cool and professionally, but you're not a lawyer, so you don't understand what you're sending to everybody. You need to understand what you're sending to everybody so that you don't have your reputation ruined by your lawyers, your legal team, right? So having everybody try to understand some of this is extremely important, and I think that everybody should at least speak a little bit of legalese, not a whole ton, right? You don't need to write stuff, you don't need to speak the language, but you need to understand the language so that you can see some of these things that might happen, and so it allows you to answer questions. Whenever you're playing a game, like when I play Warframe regularly, I have all my mods are Warframe experts. Like I just don't understand how they know all this. I've been playing this game for 300 hours and I don't know half of what they're talking about, but they try to explain something to me and they start using terms that I don't understand. So if I don't understand the terms, I don't know what they're explaining. And if I don't know what they're explaining, I don't know how to figure out how to make myself better at it. So it goes down to the same type of learning. If you at least have a base or at least a little bit of knowledge of what's going on, then you're going to be able to understand when somebody's trying to explain something to you. I'm not asking you to go to law school. I'm not ever asking everybody to go to law school. I'm asking everybody to take a second and just read over terms. You don't have to understand everything, but the easiest way to learn words and to learn language is through context, right? So if you understand all the words around something, you might actually be able to figure it out. Or what we used to do in school a lot is highlight a word, highlight something you don't understand. And next time you see somebody who might understand it, you ask them about it, or you can look it up and start researching. Now you have a reason to learn more. And the more you learn about it, like this is part of your business. This isn't just something like a hobby of yours where you try to understand things that you don't really need to understand. These are things that you should be understanding because it's part of your business. Streaming is a business. I know it's entertainment. Entertainment's been a business forever. Uh, who's our actor president, Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan became president because of the entertainment business, because he showed how he became a professional in that business. It's been a business for a very long time, and we need to treat it that way. Being a business doesn't mean that you're greedy and trying to make as much money as you possibly can while taking advantage of others. It just means that you understand what it is, and that's important. You have to understand that it is a business. So we have to talk about this. We have to learn about this. The whole reason that this show started in the first place. It's the whole reason that this book is started in the first place. This book right here was made because of business, because Prima Games was a business, because I'm an independent contractor. That doesn't mean I didn't want to write this book. It didn't mean that I mentally wrote this book for 3 years before I actually physically wrote this book, but I wrote this book and put it out there. I didn't have any say in how much it costs, but I was very happy to see that it wasn't an expensive book. So that's important to me. For example, I think it's like $10. It's super cheap. So pick it up. Pick it up is read it, support the stream here because that keeps me going. Support my stream. It does all those things. Please, 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 just do something. Yeah, streaming is business. Some do not consider themselves one. Yeah, and then that's a problem because and it's the same. Like there's so many dirty words right now. This is the part that's going into my next book, which is called the Defeatist, talking about the defeatist attitude. There's a lot of people that make word. It's like cancel culture, but canceling words. It's like, oh, you can't say that word. Networking a bad word. It's the other N word. It's like, no, no, it isn't. It's not even close. Stop doing that. It's like networking is not bad. Networking is not bad. It's like, "Oh, but don't you wanna become friends with the people that you want to work with. Isn't that the best way to do it? Networking, it can become friendships, but it's not required. But networking is being friendly. It's being part of that whole social dynamic between, hey, I really want to get to know who you are. I'm not going to date you, although some people see it that way, but I'm not going to try to learn so much that I'm going to start dating you. I'm going to learn about who you are, what your likes and dislikes are, and I can hopefully we can have a mutual agreement on how we can both do good business together. Like that's important. That is networking in so many different ways and meeting other people and meeting different connections and reciprocating on those connections and saying, "Hey, have you met my friend Mona? She's awesome. She's a lawyer for A, B, and C. She does all kinds of cool things. My girlfriend Katie, she's a lawyer too. She's working in all kinds of entertainment stuff. She's doing cool things here and there. They met each other and they all of a sudden kicked it off and they got cool stuff to talk about. Yay! Believe it or not, that's networking. Like we're all happy together, just chatting and talking professionally and becoming friends and just all this stuff. That is networking in so many different ways. How many people here at Streamer Square wouldn't be working together if we didn't network at some point and meet up together? Between myself and Tomorag and Loco and Hunter and Rini and Kiratsi and just everybody that's part of Dylan, just all these people, Wes, so many lovely people that have come together, and not just because all of a sudden we just poofed in the same room together. I've known Tomorag for 5.5 years now. I've known Hunter for 5.5 years now. I've known Loco for like 3.5 years. Like, and it's we had no idea that it was going to become something like this, but we all got to know each other and we all got to actually learn about our likes and dislikes professionally and personally, and just be like, hey, let's do some cool stuff, man. This is awesome. And but it was all a lot of it had to do with thinking of it business wise. It's hard to talk to Hunter without thinking, hey, he's running a business. That is one of the things that actually attracted him to me as a awesome friend, like as amazing, amazing dude that I wanted to get to know. And the whole reason he was one of the first people I approached at a physical event and said, hey, I want to talk to you. Katie was there too. We went to the main menu party in San Francisco. There was like this underground bar where I met Retro Gaijin for the first time, and he like I said my name to him. I said, "Hey, I'm Danotage." He's like, "Who?" And then I said it the way he said it. This is part of networking, actually learning about the people you're learning about and being like this is part of the friendship part of networking, right? Learning about each other. I said, "It's Danotage." He said, "Who?" And I said, "Oh, Danotage," because he speaks Japanese and he was living in Japan he was very early into his career in Japan. Um, and so he read everything at that point. He was very trained to read everything Japanese way. And my name in like if you were to read it in the Japanese form, it would be Denotage. So I said that to him, and he's like, "Oh, that's how." Then he knew immediately who I was. So it was very much a meeting of attitudes and ideas and minds, and we all came together. So that is just a long explanation as to why getting into physical agreements with somebody is such a good idea, even if they are a friend of yours. So as long as we understand that we're a business and we treat it as so many people will not get taken advantage of for one, but also they will have proof of agreement. They will have proof that somebody said and agreed to something. That is the most important thing, especially when it comes to friendships, right? You don't always like log straight into your mind, oh, this person said this. I must remember it exactly this way. But here you have a paper that says that. This is that proof that you came to an agreement on something. The point of a contract is to ensure that there's no misunderstandings and each party is 100% sure on their rights and obligations from effective date through termination. A good contract never sees the light of day because all parties already know what's going on. Right. So if you are in a situation where a company uses your idea, your IP, your content, and you then have to refer back and read for the first time the terms and conditions that you agreed to, you are already in deep water. You're already in hot water because most of the time you'll sit there and say, "Oh, oh, it does say that you can do that. You are fully in the right to do that." And then you feel so defeated and so deflated and you're just like, damn, I can't do anything, can I? Or you go and you try to fight it still, and you just spend and waste so much money or time or stress just worrying about something that you cannot affect, and you don't want that. You never want that. I'm gonna keep going with chat. Well, this chat's banging today. You guys are freaking kicking ass. I love it. Let's see. In law school, you learn law, not how to cover companies' ass. Um, I wouldn't say that's true. I've never been to law school myself, but I've via proxy, I know a lot about law school, and I can say that we talked about law school a lot. I would say that in law school, you do learn how to help your bosses or your people that you work for protect themselves, and you learn how to help them not ruin their ass, and how to not lose a ton of money, and how to understand. I don't think they can hear you. Just stand up. Stand up right here.
Uh, isn't a required process.
You took corporations, right?
Yeah. Or what? But
After you? Oh. Right here. Get up. Right here.
okay, can you hear me now?
You guys hear him now? Barely?
Ah,
Just speak loud.
do I go deeper?
No, you just
Will it
speak.
pick me up if I go deeper?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, in corporations, they definitely tell you. So this is how you talk to the business people, and you have to be able to talk to the business people to get them to give you the information that they need in order to protect themselves. Like a lot of it was that. A lot of it was you're doing this to help your client, and that's the whole point of being a lawyer, is to help your client. When your client happens to be a major corporation, you have to do that. That's just part of the game. That's what they teach you in law school is the game. Honestly.
Also, like they teach you the bar a lot too, which is the bad
That's
part
the
about law
main.
school.
That's the main. That's how it's the same as like elementary school.
Right.
But yeah, they teach you that as well.
I hate tests, by the way, chat. I cannot deal with how much I hate tests. It is infuriating how much I hate just written tests where you just fill in bubbles and do all these things. Because it's partially through bias because I never did well on tests, even though I knew 99% of what was taught in each class. But I would get C's and D's in classes all the time because I failed my tests, especially math tests. Like I was really good at math, but when it came to testing and getting this problem or that problem right or wrong, I failed most of them. And then it was exacerbated or at least brought up further when Katie sent me an article about how the SATs? How the SATs was actually created and written by a well-known what's the word, eugenicist. Which, if you don't know what eugenics is, it's the controlling of how people procreate and whether or not that it's okay for these people to procreate and whether or not it's okay for these people to procreate. If you've played Mass Effect, the Mass Effect trilogy, you know a little bit about eugenics. Just look at, or not Rex and everything he stood for. But understanding that and that just made me, oh, it made me so mad. I was like, I hate tests. I hate tests so gosh darn much, and that just made it worse. Until I met my mentor, who, while he was teaching me, never gave me a test. He never gave anybody in his class a test, really, unless they wanted one. Now, it wasn't because that didn't become, oh, we got no tests in here. I don't have to study. No, it actually meant I had to study a lot more because what we did were actual physical projects where we had to like fully explain what it was that we learned. We had to talk about it in our own words, what it is that we just went through. And this is part of why I teach this way and why I teach in conversation and why we talk to chat and why we do all these things, because not only do I just need questions thrown at me, but we need discussions. We need people who know what they're talking about. The greatest college experience I've had was when I was in a night class with my mentor. We were studying, I think it was late communication studies, like basically right before you graduated stuff. And I think we were talking about sex, honestly. We were talking about like why do people have kinks and where do kinks come from and how do we communicate our kinks and stuff like that. and we had a married couple in the corner. We had a group of veterans. My mentor brought in a whole bunch of people with all types of walks of life because we also ran the radio show or the radio station together, so we talked a lot about bringing people in from all walks of life and everything we did. We had people who had never really who just graduated high school, basically. That's at least what it felt like in a lot of ways. We had people who had been out of school for 20 years. We had so learning about all these things and actually having it became like the professor talked like 10% of the class, but he would keep things on topic at least, and he would bring things up, and we'd have a discussion about where all these things come from, and that was the learning experience. The learning experience was understanding that my experience and my thought process is not the only thought process out there. These are many of the examples that exists out there. So this is what I'm talking about, and why we bring up stories about what I've dealt with and what you guys have dealt with, and all these things that have gone on, and we understand that hey, let's see what is out there and then we can learn from that. And that doesn't mean that says, "Oh, this guy was talking about this one thing that happened once." That should help you paint the picture as to what you should say next rather than just giving an example because they're going to be like, "Oh, I heard of that story. It's all made up and fake." And then you sit there and you go, "Oh man, I don't know that Danitage guy very well. He could have been lying to me." And you never know what happened. Um Can we just tweet that all streaming is a business? So many streamers do not consider itself one. I would love to if I thought I went somewhere. Um, I really would. There's a lot of people out there that I highly, highly, highly respect who do exactly that. Seriously, Clara, who is one of my favorite people in the entire world, she often tweets things like that. It's like, "Will you listen to me and treat your stream like a business?" And like, it's great advice, but I so sadly feel like it's just falling on deaf ears, and it seems like nobody listens to it, or they listen to it until it finally becomes their own problem, and then they just ignore it. And I just it makes me so sad. And this the same thing comes with like here. We do this show every week, or at least I try to do it every week. And a lot of things I say feel like they're things that a lot of everybody in chat listens to, but not enough people search it on YouTube. YouTube.com/streamersquare, by the way. Nobody searches it. So it doesn't get seen by as many people as I would like it to. It's why I made a book from a big publisher that put it out to a lot of people. Unfortunately, that was a situation where I did all the promoting, and since I'm not this super well-known person, it just kind of fell off. So there's that. I mean, obviously, you guys bought it, and you guys are freaking awesome for that. But that doesn't that obviously didn't keep the company from closing their doors. So that kind of sucked. Even though this is what I think is a super useful. It may not be all the information a streamer needs, but it is at least a start. But it doesn't matter because people didn't really put that out there. I don't know. It's tough. It really is tough. So, like, hopefully, one of these times we can get something going. Like, here's the thing. I would love to be famous. Like, I would love and love and love to be famous. In fact, that is kind of my goal in life is to be famous, but not for the wrong reasons, right? And not through gimmicks and not through something that's part of why it's a slow growth. And I don't mind it being slow growth, but I want to be able to provide a resource for as many people as humanly possible, and sometimes fame has to be the starting point to be able to get something going like that. Unfortunately, I don't wanna do it the wrong way, so that's just kind of what happens. Yeah, screaming into a void is such a problem too, and that's why I think Twitter is tough. It's a tough platform to utilize because Twitter did a good thing by creating Twitter. Right? The company that runs Twitter did a good thing by creating Twitter, in my opinion. What they did a bad thing is they started to control people's feeds, and they started to give more people the ability to further control people's feeds in their own feeds and the feeds of their followers. So it became they turned an open platform. Same with Facebook, by the way. Facebook was a platform of smaller groups, but at least they weren't so concentrated that it just became a echo chamber. And that's basically what Facebook became, outside of the whole stealing your information and doing whatever they want with it stuff. But the big part is like Twitter made it so that just like Facebook, just like MySpace eventually became where they just people were able to easily, even sometimes without knowing it, create their own echo chambers. And now, yeah, it does feel like you're shouting into the void, where sometimes before it didn't really feel that way, because there was less restrictions and less things to do. Like, and honestly, giving verified people their own tab to where it perpetuates the idea of saying I only have to listen to people with a check mark. Why? Because I choose to. Because I have the ability to only listen to people with a check mark because I have that tab there. It's like, I get it. You want the special people to feel special because they're what funds your platform, but you ruined communication. You killed communication. Like or maybe not killed it, but you were about to make a big breakthrough in how humans communicate with each other, how humans spread the word of of news and information, and it basically was anti-corruption at that point. And then all of a sudden, well, see corrupted leaders get voted in because of the fact that they get to control whatever they want. And it's just tough, you know? It's really, really tough to be able to see that and have to watch that and to watch Twitter turn into something that is no longer useful to everybody. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're dealing with. My professor, Professor Cozy relates. Wait, hold on. My professor at least didn't teach us the right way to draft it. As was the case. I remember being disappointed when I learned I would not learn about actually constructing a contract in contract law. That sucks. All people are lazy. All people are stupid, including ourselves as humans. Ego lattes. I would tend to agree with the fact that all people are ignorant. I would say, um, and often by choice. And I think that's exactly what it was. It wasn't only Twitter that led us this way. It was Twitter that allowed us to let us this way. Because I do think that humans kind of need to be led a little bit. Obviously, freedom is important and mandatory, but there needs to be a little bit of hand-holding in a certain direction because then that's the whole reason that humans need leaders. Unfortunately, we have to have good leaders or else I mean, that's really the example. Things go crazy. Um, wear masks retweeted by everybody who always wears them, muted by people who do not wear and don't understand what they should. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like giving people the power to be able to just get rid of stuff that they just don't want to see, right? My first job was pretty. Oh, powered up attorney. Hi. Hello. Um, my first job was pretty much in a suits clone firm. We even had a lawyer named Mike Ross. Our Mike Ross did in fact go to law school though. The office is that that's an inside lawyer joke that I am not qualified to get. I think. Um, the office had no interior walls, just glass and no doors. All the lawyers fought over the conference rooms, since those actually did have doors. It was like working in a fishbowl. Yeah, yeah, unfortunately. Um, I put your face on covers and make you famous. Sign up the merch, the face rates. Yeah, I mean, like there. I would truly assume that there are people who I think a little bit more extreme than I do, where it's like, oh, people need to be led. They need to be led by the hand, and they will write up sometimes agreements like this, or even further, because they want to help. Right? It's not that not like they want to fake helping and actually take advantage of them. What they do is they want to help, but they want to do it exactly the way they want to do it, and they think that it's hubris, right? It's hubristic thinking at this point that they want the thing to go the way they want it to go. And sometimes some people are right. Often, not any single person is right about everything. I would say 100% of the time, not one single person is right about everything, and it takes input from all different ways. That's part of the idea of everybody is stupid, right? Because it kind of does go that way. Not one person is right about every little thing, even about themselves. You know, there's a lot of people who think they know everything about themselves, but sometimes and most of the time people lie to themselves about things that are about them, right? It's like, oh, I'm a really nice person. I try to take care of every single person that comes across me, and it's like, no, I know for a fact I'm an ass sometimes. I know for a fact I piss people off. and I have all the control to be able to do something that doesn't piss them off. But I know that that happens, you know? And it's taken me years to understand this and accept this about myself, but I say things like that. And I'm like, hey, now I do understand that I'm not perfect by any means. So that just kind of goes off. And, you know, you have to start to think about those things. But yeah, anyway. The problem is that it's hard to treat your channel like a business. I totally agree. Until it's easy, most will ignore it. That's how it works in the business world too. Yeah, of course. Of course. So the big thing here is it's very personally connected, right? You as a streamer, as a business, is a one-person business. One man, one woman, uh, you know, brother, a sister, a non-binary twister, whatever it might be. It's one. It's usually one. Sometimes it's two. It's usually one. And when you represent yourself to treat yourself as a business and talk to other people, it's so tough. That's why companies have so many different roles and so many different jobs. Hey, you're PR. You make sure that what I say as the CEO does not come across as stupid. You have to take care of that because even though I'm the one saying it, I have to worry about the things that I'm saying and the ideas that I'm spitting out. You got to make sure it doesn't sound stupid. Hey, marketing, you got to make sure it goes out to the right people because I'm just going to say the things and you got to make sure it just hits the right ears, right? Hey, art, you got to make sure that I look great. You got to make sure that all these things are actually deliverable and not just through my voice because maybe what's going on. Maybe we're gonna need an audio engineer to change my voice because it's super annoying. Whatever it might be, there's so many pieces to the puzzle when it comes to this. As a person that is one person, you have to put on a lot of hats. I say this as a person who does the same thing. You put on a lot of hats, and it's stressful as hell, which is exactly what makes it not easy. But, but, it is so important. And that's where you get your team together. Go back to listening to the episode team. Because maybe you don't have a team that you pay to deal with business stuff. But you can get a team together that takes off a load from you. You don't have to prep for your stream and do all these overlay changes or figure out what game is going to be hot that week, what game you should be playing that week. Like you can curate a team to help you do that stuff that you can go off working on something else. Like thankfully, I, I can put in my mods chat in my Discord and be like, hey, can you guys think about like, hey, like what should we be playing this week? Maybe you just think about that for a second or what's going on? Because I gotta go answer 100 emails, or like 10, but 10 emails about what we're doing here. How am I going to do it? Do I agree with what you've presented here? What's going on there? And then that way I can worry about that and that only because I only have that much time, right? Rogue Legacy 2, there we got it. Moderator Sajar has said it. Latte's contracts are short and sweet. Yes, they are. Rogue Legacy, yes, that is going to be my jam, 100%. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of this. I've been doing a lot of research about contracts, terms, and conditions, Twitch, or actually their lack thereof. That actually brings up a good point too. Because exactly what you said earlier, Power Up Attorney, it is hard, and we need to make it until it's made easy. It's going to be tough. But that's exactly where that comes from, which is basically what's the easiest thing to do? Just make less of them. Make less that people have to read, or make less that people have to think about reading but not actually do, right? Because I feel like nothing would change based on the amount now. I think it would have changed on the amount before. Because you work on anybody doing things slowly, you're probably gonna get through with it, right? If you had like, hey, you when you play a PlayStation game, you only have to agree to the PlayStation terms. That's it. Right? Every game that you play, as long as it's on a PlayStation, it agrees to PlayStation terms. And that's all you had to do. I'd be willing to bet a higher percentage of gamers would have read that agreement. I'm not saying a huge number would have increased, but at least a bigger percentage. And then you started to introduce, okay, shooter games have this one. Okay, I mean, it's not practical to do it that way, but like if you did it slowly, you would probably get that. Now we just throw everything and shotgun it all at everybody. That's just like, yeah, I don't know what to do here. So everybody's overwhelmed. So how do we make it easier? That's actually a great topic. Um, where very quickly, a couple ideas that I've been having for a while, and I hope that we actually can do something about it. We need a collective, right? We need a collective of us as content creators, as artists, as just people in general who work in this industry. We need a collective that we can talk about representation or whatever it might be, but a collective of people that just starts to teach people about what's going on here. And that's the whole reason for this stream. It's the whole reason for Creator Camp on Twitch and all these things. But unfortunately, it's all by volunteer, and that's what kind of makes it tough because considering none of us have time to watch these things. Like I'll tell you right now, I've watched one Creator Camp. There's dozens of them, and this is my jam, but I don't have time to watch them all. Watch them. I haven't had time, dude. Lawyers? I mean, lawyers are great. I obviously don't hate lawyers. I just think there's a lot of them out there that make you guys look bad. There's a loud minority of lawyers that make good lawyers look terrible, and it makes it so. Not being a lawyer, I can only assume and hear from stories and anecdotes that it's gotta make good lawyers' jobs that much harder. Um, I happened I happened to yeah, I can name some names too. I happen to be friends with 4 or 5 different lawyers in this industry. Specifically Katie and Mona and just Angelo and, lots of lovely people out there that work in this industry, and I feel comfortable going to talk to them and be like, "Hey, could you help me with something real quick?" Like, there are good lawyers out there and very nice and professional lawyers out there. They do exist. Um, some of them are so good that even at their cheapest rate, you probably can't afford them. But there's a lot of people who will still do maybe a big project for a group fee or whatever it might be. The big thing is like getting the people together so that we can start talking to things. Now, what does that come with? Does that come with make? Does that mean make a union? Does that mean that? Not necessarily, but is that something that could work? Probably. I don't know if you guys have heard of SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, but it already exists. Stuff like that already exists. We know it works and we know it protects people. And believe it or not, that's kind of what happened with a couple of companies that went away recently. So there's a lot of companies out there that I'm gonna bring up a sensitive topic, but I'm gonna bring up OPG for a second. I believe Katie mentioned this point like not that long ago. OPG was had kind of the mentality, or at least they had the image that people see SAG as. SAG is an image of, well, we're only going to work with SAG actors because not only do we know they're being treated right, but we know that they're good and they know what they're doing. It's kind of what people saw OPG as, is like, hey, I'll look at all these people at OPG. Well, they're part of OPG, which means they probably did some good stuff, man. And happening to know personally about 90% of the clientele at OPG and 100%, well, yeah, mostly 100% of the employee base at OPG. I'll tell you that that's pretty much true. Everybody who is a part of that in any way, shape, or form, or even friends of OPG, because there's a lot of people around it too, you wanted to work with them 100%. And I think that we can get that same mentality from a much larger scale thing that is not a company, but a group and a guild of some sort of idea where it's like, hey, we just want to all be protected and that's it. And you get people to start working together and stuff like that. And you get people to start reading this for a lot of people, you know? Like you get people to like say, hey, that agreement doesn't look like, we don't approve that agreement. I mean, obviously, if I don't know how SAG works exactly. I don't know if you are forced to not use it after they say they don't agree with it. But like I say, it's like, hey, you do that under your own discretion, but we're here to tell you that we don't agree with that. We don't think it's a good agreement. We don't think it's protecting each other. We think it's mostly somebody taking advantage, whatever it might be. Like that's what a group like would do. And you always have to deal with corruption. You obviously have to deal with money passing hands and whatever it might be. But that's much, 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 much safer than it just being a Wild West shootout in the middle of downtown on a high noon on a Friday right before margarita time. So take that into consideration. Let's start like actually protecting each other and looking out for each other. If you see something that you think is sketchy out there, talk to somebody you've either know work with them or talk to somebody better yet know that has denied work from them. If you may not know some of that stuff, but ask your friends and ask the people that you know closely to like, hey, have you heard of these guys? Have they reached out to you? What have you thought? Stuff like that. Gather some information and give them as much information as you possibly can. Reciprocate that information if you can. If you can't, I'm sure they understand because they had the experience first. But the biggest thing is to help each other and protect each other. That's the whole reason I do this show is to bring us together and hopefully help each other out so that we can create a better industry for us because I'm tired of seeing so many things happen to where I know what went on behind the background there. They don't know I know what went on. Nobody knows what went on, and I don't really know for a fact what went on, but I'm pretty sure what went on. I know that like they're compromised. They're in trouble. And like sometimes it's too late to do anything, but if you can if I could say something I can help that not happen, I would do it. It's tough. It really is tough. We just had another slew of sponsored creators not disclose the sponsorship on their posts for Valorant recently. Big boys in this region, because disclosing affects social media metrics. They risk it. That's a big piece too. Like, I mean, we can talk about this all day. Like, if people stop adhering to rules, it becomes more chaos, more anarchy, more problems. There's so many things that say, hey, if you don't do it, that means that we don't care if somebody else doesn't do it. And if we don't care if somebody else doesn't do it, then we don't care if nobody does it. And it's like, no, of course, and it's not enforced. But like, that's part of why getting a giant collection together is important because it's like, yeah, they're not enforcing it, but when they do, we're all done, right? And because it's like, what if somebody comes up and says, well, I mean, I didn't know I had to do that. This is my first sponsored gig ever. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. I Oh, it says it in my contract. I didn't know I was supposed to read the contract that thoroughly. I thought they were all the same. If they don't know all these things, like you can't blame them, right? Because you can't blame ignorance. You kind of sit there and go, yeah, you made a mistake, but I guess you didn't know." But that kind of becomes the community's fault, right? We didn't help them look at it and learn. Please strike notice DMCA kerfuffle. Yeah, it's tough. What brought you to Streamer Square, Dan or anybody? What brought us all to streamers? Yeah, that's a great question actually. Um, Everybody should answer if they have an answer. What brought me to Streamer Square was I I've known Hunter and Loco for a long time. I'm an educator by nature, I think. I'm pretty sure that in a past life, I was some school teacher, probably like third or fourth grade or something like that, because I know I have a short patience and short attention span and short fuse. That's why I think third or fourth grade, because that's when kids start to be total buttholes. Um, so probably in a past life, I was like a third or fourth grade teacher where I learned a bunch of learning techniques, and then when I finally got to college in this lifetime, I met professors and teachers and educators that really cared, and I was like, and I just clicked with me one day. I I want somebody to feel like how I feel right now with this professor helping me become better at whatever it is I was doing. And I wanted that. I wanted that feeling. And then so I started to bring that to Twitch on my own. And we from the very beginning, and that's probably why Tamorag and I got close, is our streams were about conversations and about, deep talks and between um doing a lot of just chatting about whatever it might have been, whether it be politics, even though for a long time I didn't talk about politics because it never really came up, or we're sitting in a situation where it wasn't really a total crime on my living. It was a lot of just chatting about whatever serious topic or non-serious topic it was. And then eventually, because I was an author still, I was already an author at that point. Um, Prima Games decided, hey, we want to write a Twitch book, and you seem like the guy to write it. So between myself and Saber AP, Kimberly, we wrote a Twitch book, and then because I was friends with Hunter and Loco, and I'd been on the stream scene several times, and they heard about this book, and they were both in it. Tamorag's in it. Lots of people that I trust and look up to are in it. They were like, "Hey," I came with an idea to do like a book club show, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to put this on Streamer Square?" I was like, "That sounds like a great place to do it." And that's where we are today. Or get it? Yep. We're actually pretty close to probably. Do we have any questions? I've just been talking for a long time. Let's see. This book right there. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. So for those who don't know what the book is, it is a book. The title is kind of accurate. I didn't come up with the title. I didn't really have say over the title, even though I fought it. Creating, growing, monetizing your live stream. It's pretty much that. I mean, but it is that. It is a lot more than that. You'll see a lot of pieces in here that talk about the very beginnings of setting up your channel and getting the settings right and working with OBS or XSplit settings are in there and how to mod and how to put some. There's a lot of stuff out of date because Twitch changes like on the daily. But there's a lot of stuff in there where we talk about getting your stream started, and then I put it up like a movie. First act is getting the stream started, getting it going, making it a hobby, whatever it might be. The second act is making it a kind of a profession or at least a business and making it kind of a job of yours and something that you spend a lot of time on. And then the third act and kind of wrapping it up is saying, hey, this is my profession now. Because I would say the majority of people don't necessarily need the third act, but it's there for people that do. Hey, this is my profession now. This is my career. This is what I do. Here's how to get management. Here's what management does. Here's what agencies do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, yeah, that's the entire book. But yeah, that's just what we do. That's just what we do. All right. Any questions? I think we are good, right? No, it's only in print because for some reason they didn't do any of that. I wanted to do an audiobook. I wanted to do a digital book. I want to do all kinds of things. My next book will be on all of those. Also, I'm still trying to contact because Prima Games doesn't exist anymore, at least not in the way they used to. They're not a publishing company anymore. But Penguin Random House still exists. I'm trying to contact them now to see if I can get the rights from them and see if I can actually create a digital version of it. So stay tuned for that. I had no promises at all there, but stay tuned for that and we'll figure it out. Kerrigan, if you want to help me out there, I would gladly take your support. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today. Today was a very important topic. I hope you guys got some good stuff out of it. Stay tuned for the upload on YouTube. Watch the VOD if you need to. If you have any questions for me, you can catch me in the Streamer Square Discord, discord.gg/StreamerSquare. Or you can just hit me up. My name is Danotage, DANOTAGE on all platforms. Even Facebook. Even was Danotage on Mixer. It was all of it. Hit me up on any platform. I stream nightly, most nights in the butt crack of dawn. So for your Australians out there, I'm in your prime time. So come hit me up. Come hang out with me. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. And this has been Dan's Stream of Thought. I want to thank you all. And please enjoy yourself. Remember to stay positive, play more video games, and read more comics. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.